in emojis, GIF.
Good afternoon. This is Ned. Good afternoon, Ned. This is Ned.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Magandang araw, a good day to everyone. Welcome once again to the Shaping Sustainable Future Together series. We are now in our third session and are also in a new year. May this year bring us prosperity and fruition to our goal of shaping sustainable futures. I am Melanie M. Santos, College Secretary of the School of Graduate Studies of Baliuag University, Philippines, your moderator for today. So in 2021, we ended the year right with the second session of this webinar series. It is just proper that we also begin this year with the same enthusiasm and commitment. The 6-part webinar series, which runs every third Friday of the month from November 2021 to April 2022, is brought to us by the Baliuag University in cooperation with the University of College of Estate Management, Global Sustainable Future Network, the Opeduca Project, and Maastricht University. We are now halfway through this webinar, and we have already gained new knowledge on sustainability, systems thinking, and problem analysis on our first 2 sessions. For our third session, our theme is Meaning and Impact of the SDGs. May I just remind everyone of our webinar guidelines? Number 1 is kindly use your complete name as your Zoom account name. Also, please keep yourself on mute. And if you have questions, you may type it in the chat box, and then you can also share your ideas. Furthermore, here are some more reminders about your participation in this webinar series. Shaping Sustainable Future Together series is comprised of 6 online events or workshop events. So the 6 online events will take place on the 3rd Friday of every month from November 2021 to April 2022. At the end of the 6 online events, each participant will receive a certificate of participation in Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. And evaluation of the activity will be done before ending our program. Okay. So thank you again, everyone, for being here. So once again, welcome to our participants from all over the globe. Our attendees today are from different sectors like universities, government sectors, companies, copper mines, and the army. To our participants from Baku, Azerbaijan, Bangladesh, Botswana, Brazil, Burkina Faso, West Africa, Cameroon, Germany, Ghana, India, Kenya, Malaysia, Nigeria, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Sweden, Taiwan, Thailand, Turkey, Uganda, United Kingdom, United States, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and of course, the Philippines. Your virtual presence is highly appreciated. At this moment, to formally welcome us all to this virtual engagement, let us have the President of Baliuag University, Dr. Patricia Bustos-Lagunda.
Thank you, Melanie. Once again, let me extend a hearty virtual welcome to all of you from all over the world in today's Shaping for Sustainable Futures Together seminar series. This online series, as mentioned earlier, is brought to you by Baliuag University in collaboration with the University College of Estate Management in the United Kingdom, the Global Sustainable Futures Network, the Opeduca Project, and Maastricht University in Netherlands. This is the third of 6 webinars or fora that aim to raise awareness, enhance knowledge, and trigger intelligent discourse on sustainable development. We had our first seminar or webinar last November 2021, where the concept of sustainability was introduced. And then in December 2021, we had the topic on systems thinking and problem analysis, of course, in the context of sustainable development. This time, we shall hear from our esteemed speakers, who will bring their perspectives on the meaning and impact of the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. Most, if not all, must have heard or are already familiar or even have a deep knowledge of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, crafted by world leaders in 2015. The goals evolved over the years and addresses the need for a safer, cleaner, and more prosperous world by 2030. This series is envisioned to plant the seed and to nurture the desire in us to join in the global action towards the achievement of these goals. Perhaps an action-based perspective of the SDGs will lead us into asking what each one of us as individuals, as institutions, as members of a larger community can do to contribute towards achieving the lofty goals and aspirations set forth in the SDGs in ways big or small. After all, 2030, come to think of it, as a target is just less than a decade away. And God willing, we get to see the fruition of the SDGs in our lifetime. Hence, I enjoin everyone to complete the series until April. Mark your calendars every third Friday of the month. The next topics would be on sustainability leadership. The fifth would be global sustainability and corporate social responsibility. And the last, leading sustainable transformation. In closing, I wish all of us a productive and meaningful webinar on the meaning and impact of the SDGs. I am very confident that these next 2 hours will be time well spent with our delivery team, Baliuag University's visiting fellows for global sustainability, Dr. Renuka Thakore, Dr. Jos Eussen, and Mr. Khoo Hock on. Thank you, and let's all advocate for a sustainable future together. Back to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Dr. Lagunda, for those inspiring words. I am sure that our participants appreciate this webinar series, and they are also very excited to discover more as we progress. At this juncture, let me give the virtual floor to Dr. Francia R. Santos, Country Coordinator of Global Sustainable Futures, to introduce the BU Visiting Fellows for Global Sustainability, or members of the delivery team. Dr. Franz?
Thank you very much, Ma'am Melanie. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. It's been a pleasure to present to you the delivery team of the Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series. So our first speaker will introduce the global perspectives of SDGs and delve into their meaning. What are they meant to people in different parts of the world, between different countries, and also within a country? Dr. Renuka Thakore's lecture will focus on the core of SDGs. No one must be left behind. She will also highlight the significance of people owning these sustainable development goals, especially the youth. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Renuka Thakore, the founder of the Global Sustainable Futures Network with more than 1,000 coordinators from more than 100 countries all over the world. And I'm proud to be one of the coordinators. In support of and complementing Dr. Renuka's lecture, Dr. Eussen will further contextualize the SDGs by observing their use, usability, and urgence. Therewith, he seeks to unleash further critical thinking with the attendees and students in preparation of his forthcoming lecture on leadership and sustainability. So by taking a constructive through critical perspective regarding the SDGs, he will try to have the participants less consume and more handle the 17 goals and their coherence from their own views and action potentials. So for he believes that SDGs in many aspects of the ongoing sustainability discourse should not be perceived as a command, but as an invitation to turn thinking into action. Dr. Eussen presently lectures sustainable development at Maastricht University, as well as culture and global citizenship at the University College Venlo in the Netherlands. So his mission is to contribute to the construction and development of a local to global learning space through which the generation can build sustainable worthy of our planet and joint well-being. So let's all welcome Dr. Jos Eussen, the lecturer of Sustainable Development and Climate Change from Maastricht University. The third speaker will talk about perspectives from the business sector as to what they need to do to assist in the attainment of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. The private sector needs to play their part and reorientate their corporate and business values to be in line with the overarching values in the UN SDGs. Mr. Khoo has been vice chair of the Geneva-based Roundtable on Sustainable Biofuels, Biomaterials, and a member of the Membership Committee of the International Social and Environmental Alliance. He advises on sustainability strategies and implementation for companies embarking on their sustainability journey. So let's welcome Mr. Khoo, the convener for Global Sustainability Summits and Dialogues, Global and ASEAN Green Chamber of Commerce from Malaysia. So without further ado, the Baliuag University visiting professors for global sustainability. So they are here, they're just so committed to share with us their expertise on how to shape sustainable futures together. So happy learning, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Franz, and thank you to our BU visiting fellows. So with this, let us listen to our visiting fellows as they discuss the meaning and impact of the Sustainable Development Goals. I am now giving the virtual floor to the members of the delivery team. They will entertain your questions during the open forum of our program.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. May I share my slides? I'm very pleased. I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm very grateful to Baliuag University organizing team, Dr. Patricia Lagunda, and my dear friend and network coordinator, Dr. Francia Santos, and also my delivery team, Khoo, Hock, and Professor Jos Eussen, who has gratefully given us the time here. And I'm very grateful to the organizing team, Rina, Flor, Castro. So thank you very much for the warm welcome, and we are very happy to be here. I'm also thankful to all the organizations who have provided in-kind support for this workshop series. So I am Dr. Renuka Thakore, Research Officer from the University College of Estate Management, UK, and I take this opportunity to introduce you to my network, Global Sustainable Futures Progress Through Partnership Network. And I'm proud to announce that today we have an online network with 1,250 coordinators, very enthusiastic coordinators from 123 countries. And this network, of course, offers networking opportunities, but also plays a leading role in creating an inclusive, collaborative, innovative, and engaging platform for everyone, those who engage with us in parallel to our vision and objectives and our priorities of our network. And so within this slide, I have put us visit us and join us link. So when you will get a PDF, you can join our network and be part of this movement. So Sustainable Development Goals 2030, very commonly known as SDGs, and they were formed in September 2015, and UN realized that 2030 agenda, they released this 2030 agenda for sustainable elements. And this agenda builds upon the success of previous program under the Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals had been a plan with worldwide goals from 2000 to 2015, meeting some ambitious goals, and particularly they were focused on reducing poverty and increasing children education. And these successes of these Millennium Development Goals motivated and inspired people to continue with some work. However, these Millennium Goals were criticized with many people, like many sections of the world, that they do not include everyone. And that's why these 2030 were developed with the consultation of 8 million people throughout the world and agreed by 194 countries, and to make it as inclusive as possible. And the core agenda, core mantra underpinning these SDGs is no one must be left behind. And that is what is attractive to me. And that is what is attractive to everyone, actually everyone. And this is not about saying just only for a gender equality or for anything. It is all about people who do not had any opportunity in their lifetime to voice their rights or access to the basic rights. And this is what it is telling, that we must be listening to them. So this serves as a new action plan to address 17 different issues that impact people on the planet. Before we move forward, just to note that Sustainable Development Goals have been abbreviated, and I might keep on saying SDGs, and or global goals, which you might just take it understanding that it is referred to Sustainable Development Goals. And so these icons of 17 different goals are shown here on the screen, and they represent the agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. And they talk about ending poverty, hunger, or combating inequality within and among countries, build peaceful, inclusive societies, protect human rights, gender equality and empowerment, and create conditions for sustained sustainable development and economic growth. And here I would say it is, though it is development, but it is revised form of development, like it is about sharing the development within all the communities and sections of the world, and then sustaining that development and reducing inequality in every activity of our life, every section of our society. Having said that, we can go back to looking at population, that why this is needed. And this is a graph where you can see that at the dawn of agriculture, we had only 8,000, like about 8,000 BC. You can see the population was only about 5 million. And now it has grown into 300 million, like it grew into 200 million, then 300 million, and even now it is up to 900 million. So it keeps on growing, and with a great growth rate of under 0.05% per year. So this tremendous change has been also due to industrial revolution, and the whole human history the whole population, the whole population has grown to now, you can see that the population now is will be more than 9 million soon in 2050. So what I mean to say that there's a great increase in population, and that has impacted our development, especially in a sustainable way. I won't go into too many details because a lot of the information is found on web pages, and everyone is aware that the world's population is growing. Likewise, at the rate of what humanity is growing, we have consumed the Earth's resources, and there's a sharp decline of these resources. We did see the decline in emission of carbon emissions in this COVID-19 pandemic. However, this is not going to last long. When the society will become normal, it is predicted that we will again be emitting carbon emissions just in a normal way, or maybe over that, rather than decreasing the carbon emissions. So having all these problems, and also like here you can see this is just a graph of global footprint network, and I won't spend much time here, but the main issue is to say that population is growing, carbon emissions are growing, so the problems of climate change we are having problems of climate change, and these all issues. And at the same time, the society, the inequality has also increases along with the development patterns. Our traditional development patterns are such that they have induced increase in inequality, and thus we need to change. And therefore, a concept called sustainable development was introduced. And I won't go in these details because we have covered this in the first session. If you want to have a look there, you can go to the link of first session and visit it. So just to remind you the definition of sustainable development, the development that meets the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. And these global goals place economic growth within the context of environmental protection and social inclusion. And that is what we want here to carry on when we are looking for our sustainable futures. Also, the agenda of these 17 goals address big concepts like reducing poverty and taking action on climate and quality and education. And each goal has targets, but these are mainly again distributed into 5 P's, which is people, prosperity, places, partnership, and planet. And these all are very much interlinked and inclusive within our 17 goals. And so it is all about promoting inclusive and positive practices for all nations and individuals. Now, this slide shows you all first 8 goals, and they address critical global issues such as poverty, ending hunger, promoting health and well-being, providing quality education to all, gender equality, access to clean water, sustainable energy, and sustainable economic growth. So these first 8 goals, and then we have these goals, which are again addressing global challenges such as infrastructure of communities, reducing inequalities, thinking about sustainable consumption and production, combating climate change, conserving oceans, thinking about terrestrial ecosystem, life on land, supporting institutions for peace and justice, and strengthening global partnership to achieve these goals. I won't go into much details of each goals. Each goal has several targets, and there are indicators to measure them and to see the how we are achieving them, to see the trajectories, whether we are achieving the targets. And this all is publicly available on UN website. So please take your own time to visit each goal at one point and understand what they mean. I know some of them, if like, for example, if I am here, I am having my earning, I have a decent lifestyle, I won't worry about goal 1 or 2, that because I have never been into hunger or poverty. But does that not connect me to this goal? And that is what we want to understand here, that if I am having a decent life, is it fair for others not having decent life? Do we think that, we may think that they haven't tried hard like us, but you may not know, they might have never had that opportunity of thinking even, or to achieve any needs, what their basic needs. They might be struggling just to have their basic needs, and therefore they did not think hard. The environment, the context, everything depends. And this is a society. Everyone has their own context. And we must try to share and diminish this inequality. Today, this educational series is also a form of something like that. And it is for free to offer an opportunity for anyone to get an education on sustainability. So we must think that how can I share my opportunities, or how can I become a part of this goal 1, 2, 3, 4, so that the inequalities diminishes in the world. And when you visit this UN goal, there are several actions given to you, several indicators are given to you, and you might find that you might be able to contribute to one of the indicator. And you can take that challenge yourself to see how you can contribute to that target through that indicator. So I would definitely urge you to visit that website. So here I want to emphasize the significance of goals 16 and 17. These are inclusive societies and justice for all, and the global partnership to implement these goals. These goals are one of the reasons why we choose to focus on the global goals in our program. So it is thinking about these goals in terms of fulfilling or thinking about social justice issues. It initiates the idea of looking at marginalized and vulnerable communities and promote both a sustainable and healthy environment, and be good and helpful and peaceful for the people involved. So this is the thinking, these elements evaluate, and what you will find that the rest of the goals are particularly target on few things like poverty, hunger, climate change, water, and life on land and consumption, and so on. But what these particularly 16 and 17, they emphasize that you need to have partnership among each other, and then to establish peace. And with justice, it emphasizes that the just opportunities should be made available. So let us see one of the goals in detail to understand them better. Here, goal 1 is to end poverty in all its form everywhere. Each goal has several targets, as I mentioned. And for example, for here in this goal 1, we have eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere, currently measured as people living on less than $1.25 a day. Now, this $1.25 figure is very interesting because you might think that very less people are living in such poverty. That is 10% or less than 10% at the current data. But if you take $2, then it becomes 40%. And if you take $8, then it is 50 to 60% of people are living in that poverty. $8 a day. And $8 a day will just give you, I believe, just give you food, no home, no other things. So this is very interesting. At some point, people have 5 houses and 5 rooms which are void and like they remain empty. The gardens remain empty. I don't say that you host your people in the gardens or houses, but think of how much you want and make it available to others in a different form such that it can be usable, it can be used in the economy, in the society. And you have to think that way. They use the number of people below the international poverty to measure that outcome. And 1.2 target is to half the proportion of the people living in poverty. But again, as I said, you must look into the $8 a day or something, which will give you that how immense this problem is. And especially I'm targeting a very, very large organizations or very large firms who are making millions and billions. And I'm just surprised that why cannot they make their economy shared between the people? For example, in India, we have so much poverty, and at the same time, we have people who rank highest in the fortune or the highest income list. So there is an inequality, and we want to just diminish that inequality, diminish the gap. And that is very important, and that is what these SDGs are for. And so this, you must get familiarized to SDG website. As I said, just go and take your time to understand. It might look sometimes some tiresome, but you might get an incentive or initiative for yourself, a motivation for yourself, your vision or your objective of you. Or you may challenge yourself by looking at this and thinking that how can I contribute to this challenge? There are several videos, entertaining plays, games. Everything has been developed for this just to make people aware and contribute to this problem. I know we will say like we have a just understanding, or we will say that governments, why don't the governments do it? But governments are also people. They are also made from people, and we are part of that government. We have formed that government. And so we must take we must get involved in these problems, and then only it will be, we will be able to make a change. And most importantly, when you see the websites and when you know something, spread the word through all the media, social media. Discuss them in your informal discussion. When are you on the table of like having dinner with your family? Speak about these problems so that you can talk to everyone. And I'm not talking only about this issue like hunger. Talk about gender inequality, talk about education inequality, talk about clean water, talk about clean land, and everything. These all topics, SDGs, should be the topics of your common dialogues or common discussion in the home, in work, and everywhere. And then only it will change our cultural habit and behavior thinking. That how can I go beyond your own? Of course, we always have to think about our own objectives, our family objectives, our neighborhood objectives, our regional objectives. but go beyond that and see whether you can make a change just locally. Having locally, you can make a change globally. And I think my team member will come up with those suggestions following my discussion. And I won't go too much now into details because I know that my team is waiting to have their word here. And I will just finish with this slide, and I will send this PDF to everyone because there are several other resources in this PDF for you to go and look. Now, here in this specifically reduced inequalities goal 10, we have seen a tremendous increase during this COVID time. And responses to COVID-19 catastrophe could turn the tide on inequality that was estimated that 49 million people could have been forced into extreme poverty, and 265 million could have been forced to bring to starvation. 305 million people expected to lose jobs, and losing job is just common nowadays. And 1 million people living in densely populated slums and informal settlements in cities could have been on high risk of infection. And we can see everyone has been affected by these problems. And therefore, I think expanding systems for the universal provision of quality social services, identifying and empowering vulnerable groups, investing in jobs and livelihoods, and acting through the multilateral system, we can decrease disparities. And I believe that it is not only the government top-down approach, it should be bottom-up approach as well. And then if we can do both the approaches together, then we will be making some difference. I will stop here. I have few slides. I will just show them, go through it. And I know there are several other things which will be coming up in the discussion. And particularly, I want to raise awareness or challenge our youth to get into this and see. You know, youth are trendy. Youth like to see new things. And this is a new thing. Make a passion for SDGs and go to this SDGs website, learn what they are saying, and think how you can contribute to this future, because you are not changing others' futures, you are changing your future there. And your future is important and for yourself. And therefore you must be dwelling into this creatively, dynamically, and talentful. And I would like you to take these challenges for yourself. I will stop here and I will invite Dr. Jos Eussen to take the floor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Renuka, for again introducing these sustainable development goals so thoroughly and underlining their essence. I will contribute to that, of course. I will, as I usually do, take a critical perspective, try to be constructive, and see if I can challenge the audience to find their way in handling these SDGs. Understanding is one thing. I think the next step and complementary to that is how to handle it. How can we together use these 17 development goals? For otherwise, people might think they are one pile, that we put everything together, which moves our hearts and our brains. Because the 17 goals comprise everything. They are very logical. And for a part, they are also an outcome of a political process. I think we should get away from that again and get back to the people, to you people. For each goal is actually a pressing resume. It is a cri de coeur. It is like an alarm bell ringing, that all of us should wake up and get moving. Perhaps it's even men's cry from the heart and the brain. So that is what the SDGs do for certain. I think we should also treasure them and value them for that. But then also realize that goals might not be enough. Because at the moment, these goals might imply strategy. And if we look from a strategic perspective, from transition, from the perspective of change, they might be criticized because I think we lack strategy. It all should come together and merge into one stream to get these 7 to 8 billion people moving around the globe, and then envision a joint mission. So strategy, I see as a set of coherent activities, one strengthening the other. For otherwise, it might turn into a big jumble. And I think we don't have this activity line set clear. It is not written out. We have to develop that ourselves. So we will find ourselves in a very interesting global community seeking their way forward. And if we don't match these activities, we might have a problem. Let me briefly zoom into the SDGs, not each one of them, but the way they come to us. I think we got 4 SDGs that are pretty obvious and most important. Like you underlined, Dr. Renuka, poverty is of course absurd in this world we live in. It's unacceptable, just like inequity is unacceptable. The depositioning of women is totally absurd. So I think these 4 we can all agree on swiftly. They are general truths. 3 more of them are actually only pointing us to fields of interest. We should study the land and the sea. We should look at infrastructure. But they don't really guide us. Then 3 more tell us where we want to go. We want to have nice living. We want to have good villages and cities and be healthy and have peace. And 2 others are actually sub-goals of these. Of course, we need clear energy. We need clear drinking water. So then 2 more, when we seek for action and transition, 2 of them, 4 and 8, tell us perhaps what to do. There is something with economy, there is something with education. Actually, there are 2 switches we can obviously turn, 2 handles we can wield. And that immediately raises the question, I think you all agree, it says decent growth. What is decent? And it still embodies growth. It still underlines this illusion that we can get more and more. I think that's false. That's an error. So highly criticize 8. Then education, obviously we have to learn, educate, get together, know what to do. But what is quality in education? So it's easily said, but it gives little guidance. And then this only goal describing how to do it refers to partnerships, which is perhaps a bit fake. So here in the West, we question when, how, who. We don't play down the relevance of the goals, but in academics as in business, and I think Khoo will enlighten that further, we still see these SDGs as pro-growth models and using education instead of focusing on people. As one of my colleagues said, it's still a bit a dull-minded rehearsal perhaps. So we should be very careful that however important they are, these goals, that people take a distance from them. They're also perhaps too cuddly. We all see these profiles on LinkedIn within the background, the SDGs. So the biggest polluting companies have that background at the moment. So it's an easy catch. So if I wrap them up very briefly, we got 4 which are universal logical, but 3 domains to look at. We got 3 to 5 goals to achieve, to work to, and we got 3 to guide us. And everyone paying attention, of course, noticed there's still 1 lacking. There's 1 missing. And that's the most crucial one for me. That's 12. This is where it all counts. This is where we should look at. And then secondary, if we do 12 right, we will also address the climate change problem. But it all comes down to sustainable consumption and production. And the bottom line, the way I see it, is that we are devouring, we are eating our earth, literally. We are wasting earth. So 12 is key, but 12 was already addressed in 1972. We all know that. So we are 50 years now debating. So that might worry people, especially people in the Southern Hemisphere. So we also need to challenge ourselves and ask, who came up with this? Who leads us? Why did it take 50 years to get this far? Will it take another 50 years before we get into action? This is a simple photograph of a room I was in Geneva at the United Nations. We talked for 5 days and 10 days and 100 days, and we kept talking. I don't think that's the right way. Like you already pointed out, Dr. Renuka, it's everybody's responsibility. So my advice is to get away from the politics, from the programming and the planning and the public relations, and get down to action, because we already had the Millennium Development Goals. They were perhaps not perfect, but they were already put in place, and they didn't truly work. So that gave many initiatives and processes and projects and plans the space to come up. Things got a bit, now not messy, but it got a jumble. Everybody's doing something without this guidance of activities, without strategy. Even fools have place to speak. This is a result of a lack of strategy, my dear friends. And of course, there are wonderful initiatives, screeching in now and trying to raise their voice. But as a result, of more voices, there's more noise. And that is what we should be careful about. For otherwise, this will be the situation in 50 years from now. It's talking and not doing. So I think we should not approach the goals as science, as something hugely difficult and complex, etc. It's not. Most of us, whether walking in a wood in the Philippines or here in the Netherlands, we all have common sense. We shouldn't make sustainable development all too complex, because it's not. Look at this. This is over 20 years ago in a factory I ran. There from waste, we made toilet paper. It's a very simple thing, of course, but production of toilet paper is devastating for the environment. So already 20 years ago, these employees came up with a simple solution to refabricate waste. This is even older. This is 30 years ago, a Volkswagen, the best sold car in the whole world. The bumper, the front side of the Volkswagen, was shredded to pieces already in 1990. Later we said, oh, that's cradle to cradle. Actually, we were already doing, and we gave a name to it later. But we should have stayed at recycling cars. Volkswagen stopped recycling the bumpers because it wasn't popular at that moment. My point is, we know a lot. We know what healthy food is. It's irrelevant to discuss food and to have campaigns and congresses. Everybody knows how to eat healthy, how to recycle bumpers, how to reduce waste. Perhaps one of the key points is, and let's be honest, that indeed, Dr. Renuka, we became many. So perhaps the most essential point is that we are becoming too many. And the only thing we start campaigning now and planning, and politicians get nervous, is that the many are amplifying the problems and the lack of solutions around for decades. So are the SDGs then guiding us? That's the question I want to leave the audience with. Consider that, what you can do, your organization, your home. Because I think we need more guidance, we need strategy. It's like the famous movie, take the blue or the red pill. Leave it with this or get into action. We know we should switch to hydrogen, reduce population growth, perhaps go to invent a nuclear fusion, let's hope so. And get away from all these popular pictures and popular words, CSR and cradle to cradle and circular economy. That was already in our knowledge system. That is already what we knew, but forgot to do in multitude. So the solutions might be might be a more easy catch, might be more near to us. So first, advice and think about, don't let the SDGs there, people, distract your own action. Don't let them distract you. It is not enough to put a picture behind your LinkedIn profile with them. It's perhaps even negative. Perhaps then let's think positive. The SDGs might help us by understanding people, planet, profit. They might do so. They might serve us. If we put them otherwise in a simple graph, then indeed you see planet, society, people, and profit coming up again. That also should wonder us and make us question, what did they add? Because just like with people, planet, profit, Earth still doesn't have a voice. And we still create the illusion that economy is something else than society, which is absolutely not. Economy is an integral manifestation of society. That's why we have poverty. So we should put economy back again in society, and society plus economy should listen to Earth. So the SDGs might help us to more specify, to more clarify people, planet, profit, but it still leaves us with the same challenge. So if we balance that, the SDGs, I think, are a wake-up call for sure. We rang the bell. We got to an agreement. We speak with one voice. They perhaps give us some direction, but on the other hand, the SDGs still promote growth. And that is my most essential criticism. Especially the West cannot grow anymore. Every dollar we grow has to be paid by the Philippines, Ghana, and Peru. So this is utter nonsense. We in the West are still building Google data centers. The new Google center here in the Netherlands consumes as much energy as 5,000 households. And we need a data center to Google and Facebook, which is utter nonsense. So the SDG might also distract us, might be too cuddly, too colorful, and too easy catch for people and organizations that refuse to move. So if I take the bigger picture again and zoom in on 12, might be quite simple. 12 is a wonderful number. Perhaps it's coincidence that responsible production and consumption carries this number, but it's a few minutes before 12. Still, we can still move. And the move has to come from the West, with all due respect. The degrowth is up to us. And the learning and education is up to the world, not make the same mistakes. What we do and what we have done is utterly ridiculous. We are overweight, literally, our bodies. We have excessive salaries. We pay soccer players 700,000 for one match. This is idiotic. We buy new clothes, etc., etc. So all these SDGs, to finalize my brief talk, come down to sensible consumption, which will steer production. Production will amplify, in effect, on a better Earth and a better environment. So I think we should learn to grow up by degrowing. Degrowth is perhaps too abstract, but we should degrowth. Then the only way forward to learn that, to act, to create a strategy, a joint mission, is by education. Then what does this quality mean? I think relearning. And I think empowering the Global South with education and owned entrepreneurship. I'm highly critical about CSR, highly critical about the AAA companies from the US and Western Europe coming to the Philippines, Indonesia, and elsewhere, telling what to do and promising you to behave again. That's not the idea. My mission would be to empower entrepreneurship within the Philippines and Ghana and KwaZulu-Natal and Peru and Colombia. I think the action and the ownership is of the people in the regions where they live. So it cannot be steered, is my message, by colorful pictures. We have to choose strategy. And in this strategy, we need a set of coherent activities. And one of the main activities is that while we lessen our growth in the West, the Global South has to come up through entrepreneurship. And that's what we have to do together. There too, we need educators. There too, we need your university. So to wrap it up, SDGs is about simply daring to go global, not in a negative way, but through learning and acting and creating new businesses and entrepreneurship together. I rest my case for the moment at this point, and I'm happy to take any critical question and to listen to any observation anybody might have. Thank you very much for this. Now I presume Khoo can take the floor and grasp his sheets.
Hello. I hope everybody can hear me.
Yes,
Hello,
sir,
Khoo.
we can hear you.
Good. Thank you, everybody. And I'd like to thank the organizers, Baliuag University again, and my co-team delivery members for preceding me and filling up the topic with such informative sessions. A very delightful introduction from Dr. Renuka and a good perspective of the history from Dr. Jos Eussen. And you have actually conveyed a very important point, Jos, and you mentioned that the Earth doesn't have a voice, and that's very interesting. So we must give the Earth a voice in this respect. So I need to, sorry, I actually started screen sharing already without realizing it, but I went into all my slides early on. But what I want to do is today, and for as quickly as maybe in the next 15 minutes, inform about the implications of the Sustainable Development Goals for business, which is my area of interest. And Dr. Renuka and Jos have covered what the 17 SDG goals are in terms of its history and in terms of what they mean going forward, where governments are concerned, where people are concerned, where businesses are concerned. Just a quick indicator or reference to the fact that there are 17 SDG goals, 169 targets, and 230 indicators. You can go to this website, SDG Toolkit, what is it? Indicators and goals. And you can see the granular detail with which the SDG goals have been developed by all the governments and all the consultants, I must say, that advise the governments to set up all these targets. And you can see here, the graph that I'm showing here is Malaysia at 2015, how we are supposed to stand with respect to the OECD countries. The yellow line here is the worst OECD country. I don't know which country that is. And the green line here is the average, I think. And we, in terms of Malaysia, perform in disparate terms. There are 17. This interesting diagram here shows how we perform as a whole. And you can see that there are many red marks that show that we have not achieved those goals. Like the incidence of poverty is very high. I'm reading off all the red points. Health life expectancy is lower very much than the OECD average. The PISA results, which regard to education, is low. Our share of renewable energy is very low. Our GNI per income per capita is also very low. I'm not going to go into the yellow and green ones, which seems to be where they perform better. Unfortunately, I don't have one of a similar chart for the Philippines, but you can see that it's quite a challenge for any one country to meet with the 17 development goals. And also, it's going to be a big challenge when we filter down to the targets and the 230 indicators. It's a massive job. No joke at all. And I've come across this phrase, whole of nation approach. These days, policy makers and ministers and everybody who is looking at making themselves heard like to use this term, whole of policy, whole of nation approach. And it's going to be quite a challenge, especially when you consider that a large part of all these performance indicators and targets actually come from the private sector. Private sector plays an important role. And while the government and the UN sets all these targets, and all these were negotiated, the interests of various countries were balanced between each of their interests so that they come up with all these goals. And each country is supposed to perform. So what is happening now? We have businesses which are impacted. The world is faced with over exploitation of resources, and if we do nothing, it would mean a bigger loss in the future. And I might guess that most of the audience today are millennials, Generation Z, and you are all likely to be very concerned about sustainability and the environmental impact. It would seem that 66% of consumers are very concerned. They may want to opt for a more sustainable brand. And if you look at companies that help with the environment, that might be a favorable choice. And as far as businesses are concerned, if you have a sustainable strategy, they say that you can reduce costs and affect operating profit, lower it as much as 60%. And there's a wisdom in building sustainability into business. And millennials these days like to choose a job that has this objective of sustainability. So a strong sustainability proposition can help companies tap into new markets, that's what they claim, and expand into new ones. And that if you focus on sustainability, you can get new business opportunities. This is the story that is being told and the song that is being sung. We have in the world today, of course, the dominant capitalistic model that is very much driven by Western countries. And way back in the Secretary Generalship of Kofi Annan, there was an initiative to set up what is called the Global Compact. The United Nations was not enough. So the United Nations needed to bring the private sector into play. And so the Global Compact was formed as membership of private companies, large corporations, and they have come up with a blueprint for SDG leadership. So what do they say? They say that number one, these are the characteristics of the 5 of a leading company that wants to achieve sustainable development goal leadership. You must support the SDG is an integral part and deliberate part of your corporate strategy. You must be ambitious, greatly exceeding prevailing levels of ambition. And you got to inspire action by others. So this quality must be demonstrated in a company. Thirdly, you must be consistent and you must embed the support for the SDGs across all the organizational platforms of a company. You got to recognize that across the business, all the senior leaders and all the top level executives are embedded with this objective. Fourth, you must collaborate with other businesses, government sectors, investors, civil society, and other stakeholders. Collaboration complements the leading company's own capabilities. And finally, 5, you must be accountable. You must be accountable to the people and the planet that you are serving as a business, and of course, all the stakeholders. And of course, there's this process. If you want to achieve your sustainability ambition, to accelerate it, you have got to look at the transformation process. You got to look for champions within your organization. You have to create a culture of sustainability, and you got to focus on making products and services more sustainable. You got to leverage sustainability data for performance, and this is very interesting. What do you mean by sustainability data? You got to look at all the indicators within your company, the impact on the environment and society. And if you are successful in all this, you have to communicate your progress, and you got to celebrate your success. So this is what is prescribed for companies that want to achieve sustainable development goals, aligned with what Global Compact has come up with, and certain sustainability consultants would like to advocate. Now, I'm involved with the establishment of a Green Chamber of Commerce, and this Green Chamber of Commerce stands at a very interesting perspective of looking at business values and how businesses can operate as an alternative paradigm to what is existing today. So here I've summarized about 8 factors that one must consider. A green ethos, a ethos shift. You must have global equity. You must have an eco-centric leadership. You must have urban metabolism, a sufficiency lifestyle, sustainability, innovation, and sustainability compliance. I've already treated sustainability compliance and urban metabolism in the previous two lectures. So today I will just say a little bit about what I mean by the other six. When we talk about green ethos, it's necessary to address what green business is all about and to make a case that a green business is fundamentally revolves around values. You know, green values involve an extended operating system, as we have discussed earlier, that puts the environment, the earth, and the people at its core, rather than generating profit solely for the benefit of the shareholders. Now, where are we going to get these green values? We've got to return back to fundamentals, ancient knowledge, indigenous wisdom, holistic values. You need to have a east-west ethos integration. You got to look at earth, eco, and environment centricity instead of an ego or corporate centric centricity. Now, Jos mentioned about the Western private sector capitalistic model. We have to recognize that there are limits to the Western model of economic development. One can argue that the Western model of economic development has led to the sustainability issues of today. Business as usual should be not the case anymore. We have to look at business as unusual. We got to operate out of the system boundary of existing businesses, seek for harmony and balance, planetary sustainability, and treat Earth as a living organism. I'm sure you all have heard of this term, Earth as Gaia. Now, how to achieve this ethos shift from conventional business values is our major challenge. Sometimes I've described the business sector as the bastion of bad business behavior. And this is really the case if you look at the extractive industries. Now, how do you promote sustainable production models and processes? How do you adopt avenues like green accounting, where you look at true costs and true prices? And how do you encourage green consumption patterns related to sufficiency of needs instead of excesses of wants? You know, you got to go along the lines of sufficiency of or a green lifestyle, and encourage the emergence of holistic perspectives and a new world model where you can achieve suitable, sustainable organization and value chain transformation. The other aspect that I like to look at is what we call sustainability innovation. And this is where, in terms of business approach and behavior, companies have to be encouraged to use new technology and organizational platforms that harness eco-centric values. We need to have new solutions to the world's pressing problems, and there are several hackathons and labs and various efforts going on to make this. And we have got to ensure that these solutions enter into the private sector space with the proper support and the direction that can encourage the entrepreneurship to flourish. We got to look at what new eco-centric business models may have to look like. Reconfigure the system boundary and return to all the stakeholders by way of designing models their appropriate benefits rather than only to the few. And we must showcase success stories and create ecosystems for facilitation of such innovation, and of course, formal trade exchanges. Now, the primary focus of all this is to redress the global wealth and income inequality, which has long been my stance that the sustainability issues of the world today is really due to the great wealth and ever increasing wealth and income disparity. The freedom to amass great wealth is the default capitalistic value today, made possible by a deregulated framework. And the imposition of limited choices on the impoverished of humanity by the capitalist system is its most fundamental flawed drawback. Imagine we have only certain choices when it comes to food, placed to us, given to us, and these choices are dictated at corporate boards in certain countries and cities across the world. We don't have our independence to choose the way we want to eat, nor we want to live, nor the way we want to consume in the degree that we need to. So a value system rooted in a green ethos will seek a wider and fairer distribution of choices for humanity at large. And we need to look at how this may be achieved. The challenge of remedial policy and action is before us, and the game as it's now being played has to be looked at. We need new novel funding systems, and approaches with which we can have new options and optimal outcomes. I think Josh mentioned about lifestyles, about choices that we need to make. And I think Renuka talked about responsible consumption. Responsible consumption really rests with all of us. We got to look at what is sufficient rather than an excessive, expensive lifestyle that costs the planet and society. Uh, this looks at whether we need to consume or we don't really have to consume that particular product or services. And identifying and working on these drivers for green consumption is what will lead us to making the best eco choices. And inherent in this approach is that we need to look at avoidance of resource and opportunity waste. And we have to question the role of advertising and marketing. You know, in a lot of businesses, the role of advertising and marketing is to increase revenue and to increase profits. So they drive this to mass consumer markets to achieve this result for themselves. But we have to ask whether this is really the best for society as a whole. And we'll have to look at, like what I alluded to in the last session, green design, green fashion, the issue of obsolescence in both electronics and even clothing. And all these will, impact on how our resources are utilized. And in other words, we have to look at a reversal of the rural-urban migration. Everybody want to live in cities because that's the fashionable thing to do. And the metabolic tensions between the rural and the urban areas. These have to be addressed. So all these can only come about if we have the right business leadership. And the right business leadership comes from an ethos or a eco-sentient within the business leaders. They need to have this value or to inculcate this value that the sensibility that all life on earth is interrelated, that all of earth's resources support life on the basis of ecosentience. If a business leader has such a value, it would naturally place him or her to make fundamental decisions in line with earth centricity and in alignment with the interests of planetary sustainability. Then we at least, if this is the case, have a true chance, a good shot at how to make progress towards attaining these sustainable development goals. It is not, of course, just the business leaders, but how this will influence political leaders, community leaders, and global leadership as a whole. So with that, I like to end, and I hope we can have a good time enjoying discussions from the floor, questions from the floor. We'll be very pleased to undertake them. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the members of the delivery team, Dr. Renuka Thakore, Dr. Jos Eussen, and Mr. Khoo Hock for your clear and comprehensive discussions. We surely have gained a lot of new insights, and we have learned a lot from you. Let us all give them our virtual claps. Thank you, everyone. So at this juncture, our virtual floor is now ready for our open forum. You may want to type in your questions in our chat box, or you may unmute yourselves so that you can ask your questions. We will read the questions for you. Let's see if we have questions in our chat box. If you have questions, you may ask, or you may unmute yourselves. If also you have comments.
Melanie, we have one question.
Yes, Dr. Thakore.
Yes, you can read in the chat. We have a question from Noli.
Oh. I'll try to look at it po. So I think this is not a question from Attorney Noli. He said, "Hi, Dr. Eussen. I agree that the focus of the SDGs on growth needs to be balanced with a bias for promoting the general welfare. There is the Social Progress Index, or SPI, promoted by the Social Progress Network, a global, wait, let me just read. a global nonprofit that supports the SDGs by aligning them with basic human needs. A focus on economic growth commonly measured by a country's gross national product or GNP is short-sighted. We cannot achieve the SDGs just by getting richer. Your thoughts on this, please? Thank you for an engaging presentation.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the remark and the question. And indeed, of course, the gross national product is something, let me say, dating back to the 50s, 60s to generate a global assessment of economic growth. And so you criticize that, and I can only fully agree. Gross national product, also per capita, is momentarily entire nonsense. It's old-fashioned. So we should seek, without making it too misty, I think we should move forward to an index of usage. This understanding how much you take from Earth in your consumption and consumption of goods and services. So it's not measuring the outcome, the performance. The gross capital was measured at progress, at more, at stapling, at getting higher. I think we can turn to a measurement that gives us insight in what we use for our consumption. So like also Dr. Khoo said, if we artificially divide the whole world, all the resources we have, split it by 8 billion people, what will then remain per person? And how wisely is that wonder of nature used by each of us? That would be a true measurement. And I think I have to declare myself guilty for living in a large house driving 2 cars. So in gross capital outcome, I might be an achiever, giving a great performance, but looking through the lens of Earth, I'm not. It's a counter perspective. So second answer to your question is that I see you refer to a network that underlines the social. Let me again remark that economy, making money and consuming Earth, is a part of our social system. Also our well-being, building hospitals, building musea, creating schools is economy. So we all should be very careful with damnifying the economic system. It belongs to all of us. So that's also very difficult, I know, to judge. SDGs and United Nations especially always talk about the people and about industry. And that is of course not true. We, the people, are also industry. All of us, each one of us, every moment of the day. We are all using a laptop now. We are all consuming energy. We all had coffee or tea this morning. And all that is produced by the economy. So we should internalize that again. We are industry. If we do not buy jeans anymore, they will not produce jeans, or we will not produce jeans. So my advice would be, and then I finish for the moment, don't take social, people, and Earth apart. It's merely one thing. Forget about people, planet, profit. Don't be deluded. It's one thing. That for the moment.
Thank you, Dr. Eussen. I think, Dr. Renuka Thakore. Please unmute yourself. Dr. Thakore, you're on mute.
Yes, thank you for this question. And thank you, Jos, for providing us with criticized views of your SDGs. And I particularly like your 2 points in this answer, that one is do not externalize, internalize industry within you. Exactly, we must do that. But the other point I would like to say, when you are saying that if we do not buy jeans, who is going to produce jeans? How we are going to get the economy on? Of course, we must buy jeans, but we must think sustainability within that. Why to buy jeans, how to buy jeans, where to buy jeans, and so on. Do we actually want to buy jeans? And then we can move towards the buying genes. And that would maybe I share the genes with someone, and that would make some sort of difference of decision making on buying the genes or internalizing or to impacting on economy. So we mustn't forget, and actually the point which you made, people, planet, and prosperity, everything should be embedded. Yes, it should be embedded within the context of yourself, but within the context of global challenges which we have. And that might make some sort of difference or some sort of contribution towards diminishing the inequality that we are having, the disparities we are having. And that is just, I want to emphasize that decision making is very, very hard. It is complex. It depends on your own particular specific reality, definitely. And therefore, we must be thinking of several things. And this type of dialogues and discourses, which I mentioned in my, that should be your discussion at the table, when you are eating, when you are walking, when you are meeting your friends, in your social activities, in your work environment, everywhere this should be embedded within your discussions. Secondly, just I wanted to point one point within your presentation when you said population is a problem. Yes, of course, population puts pressures on the economy, but where the developed countries do not have so much population, are they achieving sustainable development goals? Are they sustainable? Are their development is sustainable? We are actually, where population is less in developed countries, we are contributing to most to our problems in the world through climate, like carbon emissions and so on. So probably it is better to think in a way how we are distributing our ecological wealth, earth, keeping in mind within our population. And so there is a difference. Yes, population does have stress, but how we are distributing this ecological capital within our economy of that population. So these 2 points I would like to just raise to think and internalize our decision making. Thank you.
If I may, I'd like to follow up on Dr. Jos
Yes,
and
please,
Renuka.
please.
I like to look at SDG number 12, which is responsible consumption and production, which I think pertains to economy and demand and all that. Now, if we look at responsible production, this would involve companies producing at true cost. I mean, the issue of jeans and fashion all come about because there's access to cheap labor and cheap and raw materials from the developing countries. But if companies were to ascribe the true cost to each of these products, pay the Bangladeshi workers fair wages, the type not perhaps the level of advanced countries, but fair wages, and pay the cotton farmers fair prices for their production of raw material, then the cost of jeans won't be $5 per t-shirt, per jean or per t-shirt. It'll be much more. And when you have this true cost of production, what will happen is that the market forces will play out itself in the market, and then you will see what would be the right balance of consumption and production. I mean, this is making the capitalist system, the free market economy at work. But this is distorted at the moment because the exploitation of resources takes place wholesale. And when the exploitation of resources takes place wholesale by companies, corporate multinationals, transnationals around the world, because they take advantage of all the factor price differences and all that, you have enormous distortions in consumption patterns and enormous distortions in resource returns to the resources of labor and the various factors. The stakeholders do not get what they deserve. And as a result, we see the question then, therefore, of do we consume less genes? It's not a question that will arise. It's a question of is it fair to buy one gene, one pair of genes that can last us long and for its quality and worth, rather than a cheap one that's disposed every year and with a new fashion coming in. So when you talk about Sustainable Development Goals number 12, and if the governments are serious about imposing that as a target, they have got to insist that companies will have to produce at true cost. Jos, that's the Institute of True Cost in the Netherlands. And they actually produce studies on what true costs of various commodities are. But nobody takes it up to adopt it in their corporate strategies. Okay, I'm going to stop there.
Thank you, Dr. Thakore, Dr. Eussen, and Mr. Hock, Khoo Hock on. I think Mr. Ashish Kelkar has a question. Sir, if you want, you may unmute yourself so that you can personally ask your question.
I have a question. Now, these equalities are generally a political term, and in rightists are more popular in politics. So I have a question that is there any counter force that applies to the sustainability or green initiatives that can bring more prosperity and equality in people?
Anyone po from our Sustainable Development team?
Let me just read again and understand the question properly. Equality has got to do with the political structure of the country. Okay, for the first statement, I would say it is just raised by the political parties to gain votes, maybe, and to keep that inequality in form of that inequality so that they can win, challenge the people saying that, yes, we are going to diminish this inequality. And I think especially from the Indian context of this Indian political context, it has been like Garibi Hatao, in the sense of diminish poverty has been a slogan for many years, like since our independence. But it has not been diminished. It has been like the progress has been done. A lot of things have been done, but still they want this slogan or want this point to be discussed within the discussion of political discussion, so that they can keep on their mandate and keep their discourse or policies towards that, and divert maybe their resources there to showcase that they have done something, or they are doing something for the society. So that is one point. And the rightists are popular, and there is a force which sweeps away the green initiatives. I think the same applies for the inequality of green initiative. People who, and greenwashing is not common, just not in India, but it is commonly known all over the world. Big industries and others who have resources, they say that they are doing green. For example, Amazon is doing highly, have a high profile on doing some green initiatives. And I myself is like a sustainability assessor to its supply chain. And it does a lot of different things, like it is making a difference. Definitely it's making a difference. But the problem is so huge. That you get warmed up into the indicators and the targets and so on, and you lose the essence of that sustainability. And that is the problem. And so I think these are all debates. However, if I just say that if we can bring up the 50 bottom line people, 50% of bottom line, we have 100% of our population, and 50% of that bottom line, if we can just lift them slightly, then definitely there will be decrease in this 50% and we will be able to make change. And therefore we need to focus on bottom 50%. As I said, that $1.2, $2 or $8 a day who are having that income. How we must focus on how we can change that within the constrained environment which we have, ecological capital we have. And if we can change that just slightly, there will be a lot of difference. Like if we can make that whole 50% to 10% a dollar, a great change will happen. And so I don't think we want to get, and we here academics and intellectuals are taking just a neutral position from politicals and others. And we are just advocating or maybe just influencing people to take some decisions which would make change there at the bottom line. And therefore I won't go too much, and I don't particularly, I may not have I do not have a direct answer to this, but this is what I would say, that the counter scenario needs to become from the bottom up and focused on that bottom 50% to make the change.
If I perhaps I can briefly add as to inequalities and where to start. We should realize that the inequalities we face today, are created by the system in place today. So internalize that fact. What we have is the result of what we govern and do today. So I'm not preaching a revolution, but the transition can only come from bottom up and be done by people not in charge today, even not including all of us. Imagine when the discussion rose in the 1970s, 80s, and when we started to wake up, imagine that we would have transformed education. Then we would have people now 30, 40, 50 years old running the companies, running the countries. So like my colleagues already pointed out, the millennials are doing much better already, but just imagine if all of us could be taught as world citizens and take on this world all together for 20 or 30 years, that is the change. So that is also my criticism to modern day girls speaking out loud or in congresses or SDGs or colorful cushy things. That's not the thing. That's deluding us. That is still cushioning the present system. So that is why I'm not popular with UNESCO, because I speak out loud. It is one more thing. If UNESCO speaks of granting youth a position, they mean incorporating youth in their system in Paris. If I speak about granting youth a position, I see them as the entrepreneurs, teachers, and mayors of tomorrow, building their own systems of government. That is a brief addition. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jos.
Yeah, if I may, can I
Sir
just
Khoo?
add in a little bit more for Ashish's question, which is very interesting. There is a theory of social cycles that originated from India. And the theory of social cycles basically state that the acquisitor is now in control of the world economy. There are 4 phases. One is the age of the laborer, the age of the military, the warrior, and then the age of the intellectual. Then you have the acquisitor. And the age of the acquisitor is indicated, Ashish, this is meant for you, when the intellectual and the warrior and the laborer is paid by the acquisitor. All 3 are in the pocket of the acquisitor. And you look around the world today, governments, intellectuals, laborers, the workers are all paid for, owned by the acquisitors. That is the state of the world today. And that determines the political will and the political reality around the world. It is totally globally capitalistic. And like Jos, I'm not preaching a revolution here. There's no violent overthrow of governments being preached here. But what needs to overcome this system is a movement from beneath the ground. And this can only come from communities, and this can only come from people that make their choices in the right way. When they are able to tell that they have actually choices that they can make on their own rather than be only given to those given to those that are provided to them. And in that sense, education plays a very big role, Jos, which I know is your favorite topic. And of course, Dr. Renuka, what you have done with 123 countries is a very good effort to spread the message around. And I hope that a movement can arise whereby not only do you arise the community and the awareness among the community, but in the business sector, you create a new business leader that is ecocentric and showcase the successful positive deviants, I'm going to call them, that have demonstrated their successes in attaining new business models. And there are many around that have tried and succeeded. But we have to be careful that they are not bought up and tucked away by the global corporate leaders, never to be seen in the light of day. Those that belong to Wall Street, they want to make unicorns out of them so that they can own it and control it and develop those big data centers, Jos, that populate the Netherlands. So we got to look at decentralization of entrepreneurship, this decentralization of financial support for these people. And to answer your question, Ashish, political domination in a way can only be met by political dominance if you want to look at it from that point of view. But there are many forms of political movements and political expression. And I know there's also an article, there's also another question about media and how media can communicate the right forms of messaging for sustainability. And this is one of the deficiencies right now. We don't have that, and we need to address that. And perhaps Renuka, through your platform, Dr. Renuka, through your platform, we can, achieve more in that respect. Thanks. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you to the members of our team. We have another question, this time from Mr. Ricardo Lopez. Mr. Lopez, would you like to ask your question? You may unmute yourself. Or if you may, I can read the question for you. I'll just read the question. For the members of our team, how can we ensure success of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, considering, there he is, Mr. Lopez. I think he's turning on his camera. Would you like to ask your question, sir? You may unmute yourself. I'll read po, and then the members of the team can answer. So again, how can we ensure success of the SDGs by 2030, considering setbacks brought by the pandemic and under a context of complex dualism of rich countries producing more to support impoverished or even developing countries?
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for asking this question. Yes, pandemic has brought some setbacks, but it has also shown the reality of uncertainty. Uncertain situations, how we must deal with uncertain situation. And we have so many lessons to learn from this pandemic experience. We have seen that the global, like all the countries globally have joined their forces together to address this problem. And this can be done for climate change and other problems or to achieve SDGs. And therefore, we must learn from this. And specifically, when you are asking about the rich countries producing more to support impoverished or even developing countries, yes, there has been some delays in transfer of money, or they have never been transferred from rich countries to these developing countries, which were promised, and that has failed. But I have come up with few things, like I can show one example that I'm working with farmers in Indonesia. when anyone comes to me from developing countries with a project, they definitely come to me in a sense that they might have some financial support from me, and which I don't have. I myself work voluntary, and everyone here works voluntary, and we do not have any grant, so we can't help it financially. But what I dwell into that try to develop strategic capabilities for uncertainties, not for just these problems like COVID or climate change, but for any problem coming in future. The world is going to become complex, but at the same time, it is going to be uncertain. We are going to face uncertain situations in our life, in our society, and the worldwide. And therefore, we must gather those strategic capabilities. And if we, okay, because one person has some specific expertise, the other has expertise, third has expertise. And so get together, collaboration and partnership here is a basic solution. If we don't gather together, we are not going to make change. And therefore, when you are talking about rich countries, make your, first of all, make your own status in a way that they would be attracted to put your the finance to you. And there had been some previous experience that even the finance was given to these developing countries, they have not been translated into some effective solutions. And that should not happen again. So there are these lessons. When we are talking about pandemic, we have to go back to understand what are the lessons. Misinformation should not be there. And everything must be approached scientifically. And what I mean by scientifically, that there should be reasons, logical reasons underpinning your own, these all basic science. And then you can go and approach rich countries, and probably that would be a way forward. So thank you. And I think if anyone wants to add to this, then please go ahead.
Dr. Jos?
Yes, a brief addition, as brief as possible. The question mentioned 2030, of course. For one thing, it's an illusion. We will not make it at 2030. So don't panic, but 2030 is way too early. There was one very good thing about COVID, and it still is very good about COVID. Only one thing, it's the first problem in all human history we all share. We had terrible wars, but this is the first one all of us have to deal with. So there's an opportunity, there's a chance. If I look at the response of the Western world at this moment, England, Netherlands, Germany, France, we get very nervous when we can go out for dinner twice a week. We cannot go to the discotheque, to the bar. We cannot consume, game, go out, socialize. So don't have the illusion that from the Western world, and especially America, people will now come to their senses. No, people will try to make up for the 2 years lost in consuming. But remember my remark and interruption now by my words, COVID is the first thing we all share. And that is where we should learn from and take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jos.
I just would like to say one thing, if I may, that setting the targets for achievement by 2030 is an arbitrary thing set by the governments of the world. What one really has to look at is whether the pre-existing conditions of businesses, of the world governments, are any different as we go along. If we have the same discussions going, the same double talk and double standard going on, even 5 years from now, it would seem that we will not make any progress. So what are the pre-existing conditions that we need to address? This must be fundamentally looked at before we can imagine progress being made. That's my point. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we have a raised hand here. Ajik Zaman, if you may turn on your camera and unmute yourself to ask your question.
Thank you so much, Melania. Well, at first, I'd like to give my greetings and thanks to all the distinguished speakers today. And I'm very much grateful to Dr. Renuka ma'am for inviting me and having me the honor of being a part of the larger group on sustainable development of the world. Well, now if I may ask my question, it's I have to explain it a bit before I ask the question. You say I work in a military, and the working environment in military is we don't have any ambiguity in our conversation or orders. There is a saying in army that everything has two answers, either yes or no. There is nothing in maybe. Maybe doesn't work in the battlefield, or maybe doesn't work when you have to fight for your life and you have to take a decision, whether good or bad. But there is no ambiguity in the orders. So what I find very interesting regarding the sustainable development is whole world, we understand it, we realize it. If you talk about the Western side or the Southern Hemisphere, countries like us, developing nations or underdeveloped or these so-called developed countries, everyone unanimously understand the importance of sustainable development goal. Everyone talks about it. We share our views in bigger forums like United Nations, UNESCO, and many other places. But when the question of execution comes, I like to address the example of the last COP26. The whole world, all the nations leaders, they have realized the problem that we should take the climate over profit. But when the execution part came on the last day, it was delayed for 2 days because the whole world could not come to a conclusion. A single point where there will be no ambiguity. The answer will be either yes, we'll do it, or even if it sounds bad, harsh, we should have the courage to say, no, we will not do it. We'll give the profit the first priority. My question is, we realize it, but when we talk about it, but when the turn of execution comes, we don't have the courage to either say yes or no. Why? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Aziz. Thank you. And I must say that Aziz, when Aziz joined our network, he said, I don't know anything about sustainability. And today he's just speaking so much about sustainability. I am surprised. And I am very thankful for raising this question, yes or no. And exactly, this is so interesting question, isn't it? And therefore, I have said, yes, I will do it. And that's why I did this thing, this network. I know that it may not make so much or like it will not change the world, but it has changed my world. It has changed few people's world or few people's thinking. And that is what we want to do. Bottom-up approach. And I know that it should be the first priority for everyone, but the first priority for everyone is just sustaining their living, first of all. And that is not a new thing. It is a historical, our behavior of humankind, since we have born as a human, since the human are present in this world, it has been just our first priority to survive, to eat and live, survive, and then to settle, and then to do the societal actions and so on. And that is not going to change. So, and therefore I mentioned, lift to those 50% of bottom line people, and we will be able to do. And this should be a core objective or a vision for each industry or industrial person, that how can I contribute there, the bottom 50% people. And if that their mission or their objectives changes, then their strategies will change, their governing rules will be changed, and then the actions will perform. And that is what I would say, and I will rest here. My answer.
Thank you, Dr. Thakore. The other members?
If I may quickly, Ashik, thank you for putting this in military terms. There's a new movie up called Don't Look Up, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Meryl Streep. It is like as if there's an asteroid heading towards planet Earth, and do we act or we don't act? There are no maybes. It's coming for us. So the climate change issue has to be framed that way. That's we are facing an existential threat. If we don't do anything about it, we'll all not be able to survive. Thank
you, Mr. Khoo. So we appreciate all the questions that you have, but we're down to our last, and this will be from Mr. Alan Benugsudan of TIP. If you may turn on your camera and unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. My question is, the university must face the challenges that society demands and must assume an active role in leading the changes needed to train the professionals of the future, incorporating sustainability and the SDGs in the curricula of many degrees. Will it seek that students assimilate the importance of evaluating projects from the point of view of sustainability beyond strictly economic criteria and other multiple constraints? Or do you have any best practices that we can use to incorporate sustainability into our programs? Thank you.
Dr. Jos?
Yes, that is a very strategic question. I will elaborate on that in the fourth session when I have the pleasure of lecturing on this specific issue, how the educational industry can contribute. One advice for now, and to get everybody thinking along, I hope, you said that, I think you meant it very well, you questioned how to add sustainability to curricula. I think we should add the curricula to sustainability. So the vision is that the learning should only be about sustainable development, should only be about water, food, energy, construction, care for the elderly. Then we researched that for 8 years, almost a decade, every curriculum on this globe and every university can comply with it. So if we turn around the landscape and learn on future defining themes, you will comply with every curriculum. So my advice would be, for now, quite briefly, don't over-focus on the present, focus on learning, then redefine education, and then come to school, primary, secondary, university. There's a challenge. So I warmly invite you, there's not time to go into depth at the moment, but in a few weeks from now, we will really go into this.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jos. The other members?
No, I think Jos completely agree. But just a simple example that, for example, like I teach construction, and in construction we have several material. Or maybe let me tell you just example of a geography. You know, in geography I'm not a geographical person at all, like no wise, but what I think that when we are teaching students about the river basin, then we generally focus on the topology or the water going away and so on, but and how people, and we go little further, that how people have started living at the rivers and so on. But how this river and the surrounding can be associated with economic activities, why they should be conserved and how they can be conserved, and what other activities, creative activities can be done which would be impacting on the health and well-being, and how these resources can be maintained clean and sustained manner with less energy, or maybe within that resources, how we can increase our renewable resources for the energy, And if we just take that one topic and relate with these interdisciplinary aspects, then that would be just including your SDGs, because that will impact on the poverty and hunger and many other things, all our goals. So just taking that topic, I think teachers has to play a very big role here and make the exercise as inclusive, like interactive as possible. Make it a practical example, bring practical examples. And also nowadays, you know, we have these online tools, so many tools. Just you have to spend little time to become creative. Ask others. Now you can just be in your classroom and become an international classroom. You can invite anyone in your international classroom to talk about these things. And there are so many interactive apps. Just now I saw one app where I can just put a point and I can see where that drop of water will go through the whole river basin to where the ocean. And these are the things like technology, and you should bring in all those things just for that topic. And what a vast knowledge or understanding you will have of these different disciplines. So I would and here I think we have plenty of students and faculties. And I will say that just go beyond that imagination, be creative and bring all those in there and make it an open forum. Ask your students to bring those examples. You don't have to do the work, and you will be surprised that they will be coming up with so many examples because they are creative. They have so many tools at their on their exposure, like social media and so on, and they will be amazing, you know. So just throw a topic to them and you will be having that impact. So I will stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thakore and Mr. Binugsudan, and our members and the other members of the delivery team, Dr. Eussen and Mr. Khoo on. Let's all give our members of the delivery team our virtual applause. Thank you very much, everyone. But now, may we first request for everyone in the meeting to open their cameras or turn on their cameras so that we can have our picture taken. May we request everyone to turn on your cameras.
Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for being with us today in this session. Again, as requested, may we see your beautiful and handsome faces from all around the world. Okay, our partners and our future sustainability, sustainable Earth. Okay, so let me already take the picture. Kindly just smile. 1, 2, 3. I'm in the first frame. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, allow me to paste it in my document. Okay, I'll move faster. Second frame. 1, 2, 3, smile. So we have 5 frames today, so many participants. So we are very, very thankful. Baliuag University and our partners are thankful that you have attended today. Third frame. I'm now in the third frame. 2 more to go. Okay. Fourth frame. Smile. And last frame. All right, thank you so much, everyone. So definitely we'll watch the Netflix Don't Look Up later, I'm sure. Okay, thank you. Back to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Ma'am Bubbles. Yes,
before
Dr.
we go ahead, I have to make just 3 small announcements. On Saturday, 5 o'clock, there is a film from our network being released. I have put into this chat, and I will do it again. So please join that film, free for everyone to join. Secondly, we are coming up with a series of how to change the decision making, how to change the behavior for our decision making from March. So please keep that in mind. And then we are coming with a very grand online orchestra, whole day, a big program on orchestra with recycling and uplifting instruments, music instruments, and the dresses are also from recycled material, and we are just singing songs on recycling and SDGs. And we are also coming up with a documentary on vanilla and coffee plantation for Indonesian farmers. So this is all exciting programs are coming up. So just stay with us, tuned us with ESFM. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thakore. I think those are really exciting programs. So we'll wait for those things. So now, may I request for your cooperation in evaluating our webinar? Kindly check the chat box for our evaluation link. And then, for those who are having questions about their certificates and how you can get them, your e-certificates will be directly emailed to you. This is a sample of a certificate of participation that you will be receiving after the program. Next slide, there. So we are almost done with our third session of this webinar series. However, expect that the members of the delivery team will give us more in the next 3 sessions. On that note, we are all heading to the remaining webinar topics. We have finished already with Introduction to Sustainability last November, Systems Thinking and Problems Analysis last December, and then this session, the meaning and impact of the SDGs. We only have 3 topics left, which are Sustainability Leadership, which will be done by February, Global Sustainability and Corporate Social Leadership in March, and Leading Sustainable Transformation in April. We now have come to the end of this session. May I just remind you that we still have to evaluate our program after this. And to properly end this session, let me give the virtual floor to Dr. Flordeliza A. Castro, Vice President for Academic Affairs and Dean of the School of Graduate Studies, Baliuag University, Philippines, for her closing remarks.
Thank you, Melanie. No, so again, in behalf of the Baliuag University, the team from BU and our president, Dr. Lagunda, we would like to express our appreciation to our participants this afternoon, or if it's evening in your respective places this evening. We would really like to appreciate and reiterate our thanks to the delivery team of this Shaping Sustainable Futures Together series, the Global Sustainable Futures Network, the University College of Estate Management, Maastricht University, and the OPEDUCA project. So as mentioned by Melanie, we are now halfway through in our lecture series, and this is the 3rd, and we will have 3 more lectures, 1 on February, 1 on March, and 1 on April. So I think you were able to learn, you were inspired, and you were oriented comprehensively from the discussion on the meaning and impact of sustainable development goals. At the core of this agenda is our responsibility to do our sustained action towards a transformative and sustainable world. Achieving the 17 Sustainable Development Goals will create a world that is more equitable, sustainable, prosperous, and will help us achieve a better and more sustainable future for all. Times have really changed and challenge us to be more resilient as world and global citizens. True enough, we have our roles, our responsibilities to play in the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. I think the key to achieving the SDGs is to meaningfully engage everyone, especially our young people, the millennials, local authorities, and leaders. As citizens or individuals have the highest responsibility to achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, no, by 2030. It is really a huge task or a job for all of us, but if we are going to come together, whatever our field or discipline or specialization is, if we are going to believe together, if we are going to share our resources together, and if we are going to respond together with our vision of attaining sustainability, we will have a better future in the next 20 years or more. I think we should try to practice the 3 A's approach. No, I got this from UNICEF. First is awareness. We have to raise awareness of the SDGs, and this is one way of doing it. We have to take action. No, and the third is we have to hold our decision makers accountable for progress. Later on, as we achieve, no, if not all, but majority of the targets and goals of the SDGs, we will be able to probably eliminate global challenges that we are facing, such as poverty, inequality, climate change, environmental degradation, and peace and justice. Allow me to reiterate what were mentioned by Dr. Khoo in his lecture this afternoon. We have to redefine society's needs and wants. We have to have responsible movements or actions, and let us develop community approaches and solutions. In closing, in behalf of the president of the university and the team, Reina Flor, Melanie Santos, who is our facilitator this afternoon, we would like to say thank you to everyone. We wish to see you all in the next webinar scheduled on February 18th. Thank you. And as we say it here in the Baliuag University, let's be the best that we can be. Happy New Year to everyone. And I think February is very near, so we'll be celebrating Valentine's Day on February 14th. Again, thank you, Dr. Renuka, Dr. Khoo, and Dr. Jos. Maraming salamat po, and see you again on February 18th, next month.
Thank you po, Dr. Castro. So thank you very much to all of you for this very productive day. There is a lot of sustainable development goals that we need to achieve, but together we can do more. Once again, my name is Melanie M. Santos from Baliuag University, Philippines, wishing you all good morning, good afternoon, and good night. See you all this coming February 18, 2022.